No one will deny that the pandemic has changed a lot of things, but it's not the biggest change. The biggest change has to be on the way that we work. Prior to obviously 2020, I've said before, I work in marketing. I do a lot of digital marketing. My argument was to my boss at that time, many times, was I can work from home. I just take a laptop and I can work from anywhere. I've worked in cafes before. Again, this is pre-pandemic. I worked in cafes. I worked in all sorts of places. I even at one point rented an office when we were moving offices in the middle of Sheffield, and it was fantastic. I got to spend a week by myself. I got so much work done. It was fantastic, and I wasn't even working with the rest of the team. It was just me in my office by myself. Based out of, what was it called now? The Electric Works, I think it was called. But it's just across from the train station. It's got a big slide in it, but you can only use the slide from the top floor. But it's quite fun. But yeah, the way that we work has changed completely, even more so, and more businesses have recognized the impact of being able to do this. I've seen companies, marketing companies in particular, digital marketing companies, basically go, well, we don't need our expensive central London properties anymore. Everyone can work from home, and instead we can downsize massively to having a smaller office and use that. And of course, who is this affecting? At the end of the day, surprise, surprise, it is affecting Tory donors. And of course, eventually, this has now become very, very much part of the Tories' very own culture war. So, before we get into the rest of this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel, as well as the YouTube channel link as well to subscribe to the channel and get some perks from that as well. And of course, the YouTube thank you button as well. So, what's been going on, you're listening to there? And you've only got to turn back the clock a couple of weeks where we saw Jacob Rees-Mogg trying to get civil servants back into the office. But even then, the civil servants were like, look, we don't need to go back into the office. We've sort of proved over the pandemic, like many people did, we can work from home. We don't need to do that. And it has big economic differences and huge economic consequences. Commuter towns, for example, massive change there. Lots of people, instead of commuting out to towns, different areas, these areas have found that more economically now, they've become better places as more of these places open up to recruiting from more work from home positions or hybrid positions where you go into the office maybe like once or twice a week and then the rest of the time you work from home. This is now being seen to become the new normal for many of the new business models that we are seeing. And yes, some businesses have returned to the office. That's fine. But my belief is always now that if you have an employee or you hire an employee who says, look, I can do this all from home, there is no longer an excuse, as I certainly seen it, and many other people remember back pre-pandemic of, oh, you can't work from home. Don't be silly. But the evidence outweighs any of their arguments against returning to the office. But as we said before, why is this becoming part of the Tory culture war? You see Alan Sugar, who at the beginning of the pandemic tweeted out how much he loved working from home, and it was a new revelation. He loved it. Only to a couple of weeks later, come back and do a complete 180, calling these people lazy. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with his property portfolio losing, I think it was something like £60 million worth. Because at the end of the day, it is the commercial landlords who are losing out on this, with all that office space now going to waste. So what are, of course, some of the benefits? Let's go into this piece just briefly from the Yorkshire Bylines about some of the benefits working from home, and not just British studies, but some American studies as well they looked at. So studies show that the lazy political arguments we hear hold no weight. Technology means that many of us can work from any location, and the pandemic has kicked off a long overdue revolution of our working practices. Time, stress, and the cost of commuting are the most apparent benefit. The next extra time that can be used more productively, you can start work earlier and finish later, have more flexibility. That extra hour with the family in the morning, or even, is now priceless to many. And the ability to take up a hobby is also a measurable benefit. British studies tell us this. Some 60% of the UK's adult population worked from home during the first lockdown. On average, those workers saved at least 44 pounds a week by cutting out on things like commuting and on buying lunch out. This resulted in at least a 23.9 million Brits working from home, saving around 1.1 billion pounds each week between them. These two different surveys found that roughly 2/3 of employees are now saying that they're more productive when they work from home. And of course, American studies have shown something very similar. On average, those who work from home one day a week are 47% more productive. A study from Stanford of over 16,000 workers over 9 months found that working from home increases productivity by 13%. In the same study, workers also reported improvement in work satisfaction. Attrition rates were also cut by 50%. And some 77% of those who worked from home remotely last year, and a few times per month, showed increased productivity, with at least 30% doing more work in less time and 24% doing more work in the same time period. Work from home employees spend less time avoiding work, a 15% difference, and spend at least 1.4 days working each month, and took more breaks. So this idea that you often hear, and you are going to hear this certainly in the coming weeks as they try to push more people back into the office, oh, British workers are just lazy. They're just lazy. And remember, this goes all the way back to, if you remember, Britannia Unchained. A very infamous opening quote saying how British workers were the most laziest in the world. Why? Because they were protected by worker rights. And we saw just a few months ago Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, well, those workers or civil servants who work in London, well, maybe we should start paying them less. Maybe we should start stripping their rights away, which is a bad thing. You do not want that. Why should someone who works from home, who can just work as someone as well from the office, be paid less or have less rights? That's just not on. And as we've said before, there is a massive revolution in our working time and the practices that are going to go forward. And as we've said, one of the unforeseen consequences of Brexit has been, or will be, that unions are going to get more active, much to, shall we say, people like Jacob Rees-Mogg's chagrin, because they don't want that. They don't want that at all. But that's ultimately what we're going to see. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.